be in conversation. Jasper is somebody I admire. I think that he's a fantastic composer and a creator. And I thought that, while thinking about programming and people who I thought I should speak with and be in conversation with, it was kind of like a no-brainer for me to extend this invitation to Jasper. So I'm really grateful to have him here. Uh, you know, uh, this evening. It's 4 o'clock here. So we're approaching the evening, but I'm really glad to have him here to speak.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, man. Absolutely. Keith, are we recording? Are we good?
I think we're good. You can hear me. I'm gonna just
All right, we
minimize myself out of here, and yeah, I'll just
cool,
mute
cool,
myself.
cool.
But I'm
All
listening
right,
in.
cool,
You guys
cool,
go
cool,
for
cool,
it.
cool, cool, cool. Um, you know, um, in a little over, about 2 weeks. We're what, 2 weeks out? 3 weeks out from a solo show that I'm going to be presenting at Printed Matter here in New York, June the 23rd. And this particular install deals a lot with music, sound, the presentation of architecture, furniture in some way, photography. This is a composite of things that has really been inspiring me, not as of lately, but for a very long time. A lot of things that I was connected to emotionally and physically. And this new work that I'm creating is going to be presented as a publication. It's one work. It's being presented as one work, and it deals with many different elements. And I would just say that one of the focus for this particular install is sound, and how are we interacting with sound from an emotional aspect, from a visual aspect, from a tangible aspect, and how far do we uh, uh, look at sound beyond hearing it. And you know you have a very unique way of how you compose, how you create, whether it be through your music, your installations, your paintings. You have a very uh, interesting, and that's to say the least, way that you operate. And I've been very interested, in all those different components in which you create from, but particularly how you involve yourself with sound is kind of like, you know, uh, what's the draw for me. So I guess this conversation is obviously there's some things that I want to speak about, and we will do that. But we will also go improv. We'll just go off the dome and just have a discussion. I think I like that much more. But you know in correlation to publication, because publication is my kind of like one of my main mediums. But I don't pin my practice down um in this way in which the publication is like this tangible thing like the book. I'm always interested in the components on where I can break a publication down and be able to engage with it through different lenses. And I guess sound is one of the particular interests for this. And I just wanted to ask you, how do your practice, particularly with music, how do you coordinate that in public, because you have done publications as well? how do you coordinate the aspect of sound through the lens of publications beyond sheet notes? Because like sheet notes is just like this idea of how people like to communicate based off of sound and how we read music. But how are you dealing with those components through publication, whether it be visually, tangibly, like how is this exchange with you? How are you?
Well, I feel like it's really messy. I don't think
Mm.
I don't think there's a way. I want to. I think it's important to start off with that, because yeah, it's not clear to me as to why things are the way that they are. I just know I have like these pretty vague beliefs, and I let those vague beliefs kind of guide me to how things should kind of become material, um, including sound, like being material. Um, I kind of see like each medium as like a sense, and certain senses can like heighten certain like experiences. You know what I mean? Like painting is about the eyes, and I guess if you could call like history a sense, like maybe it's the eyes and the history at the same time. And I guess books are kind of like that, but I feel like books are way more obsolete in a certain way than paintings are. They just die. It's like really ungraceful. Paintings die pretty ungracefully as well, but like books, they just kind of like, like they just kind of
That
like, like
that, that kind of hurts my heart. You said that books kind of die.
well, no.
Um,
Everything dies, but I mean it in the sense that like the way that things die, like I feel like books die like extremely hard. You know what I mean? In the relation of all the different like music um dies, but it has more of like a social component to it, so it can be reactivated, you know what I mean?
mhm.
I guess books kind of like Fahrenheit 451, they kind of come back to life depending on the time period. But this is what I want to say. Because I did a book originally as a catalog for a show I did in Minneapolis with Midway Art Contemporary, and
Yeah, I know this. I'm familiar with this publication.
yeah, I basically it was kind of like a red herring because I wanted it to kind of be misleading in the sense that a catalog is meant to like display the works that are in the show, but then I was like, what if the catalog doesn't have anything that is in the show and guides you
Mm,
to music, which is like this
mm,
album that I put out. And then I sold those books as my tour merchandise, opening
mm,
for the band Injury Reserve. And I just love this like misalignment of like things. You know what I mean? Like a book
mhm,
shouldn't be sold on a tour. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Or these anyway. I don't get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now you opened up the dialogue to a really interesting topic. Um, you said books die. A lot of times we connect dying to like um the to something being the end, and that has been the end of its run. But um I'm a firm believer, that um I don't know, death is kind of like the beginning. So I think that it opens up this conversation um because even for myself in my own practice, a lot of my work have to do with research. And um I'm not saying that every book is interesting that I'm researching, or every archive that I'm engaging with that is interesting, and the books that I'm engaging with is interesting. But it's also components in which um uh I I take from this tangible thing, such as the book, because like the book is just like this it's like it's like it is what it is. It's a book.
Yeah.
And my idea of creating publications through whatever medium that I wanted to create it through, particularly for this installation. It has a lot to do with sound, but you're not hearing anything. Like you're not necessarily hearing anything. It's kind of like your heart and your mind and your emotions have to kind of like guide your sense of sound through this exhibition. And there was one professor that I was speaking to, and I was telling him about this show, and he started to talk about sheet notes, and I was like, sheet notes is kind of like the most boring entry into like how we're reading music and how we're engaging with it. And for me, it's like never a component in which I like to grab from. The way I'm creating and moving with this publication and moving with publications is in a very improv way, because like each page becomes an object becomes a page. I'm creating I'm thinking about interlobes and how I'm pausing and how I'm picking back up from the next place of reference, and I'm using objects to be the interlobe, different things that's around me, to create this component in which is this information of exchange through the lens of sound. So I seen you in performance. I want to say the last time you were in New York. I seen you in performance. It was a while back.
Oh yeah.
In
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Oh, it's not a good
Yeah. Yeah, in Brooklyn. And when you're in performance, particularly that performance, I don't know, it was like me engaging with the music and me receiving it, I went through a series of emotions, and it's like I could not keep up. And I don't know if that was, I still don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I could not keep up. But I was not uninterested. I was still very tuned in. And there were parts in the performance where there was like this somber, this slowdown, and then things will pick back up, and then like you there was one part in where you screamed out, and that kind of like it it kind of like unraveled me a bit. And there's a part and there's a part in the installation and where I'm trying to translate your scream visually. And I'm still looking for a way to transcribe that. And yours was so spontaneous, and I'm looking for that exchange in the work for it to be very spontaneous. And I guess my real question to you would be, when elements like that take place while you're creating, while you're in motion and while you're creating, are those things that just come out in the moment, or those things that are predetermined before?
There is like it's funny what you're saying about like score, like having a score, like sheet music or sheet notes. Like that performance is like very scripted. I think as we've rehearsed that many times, and the scream happens at a very specific moment, and because like when you're performing, you're dealing with like people's expectations and pleasure or non-pleasure, and I just try and heighten those little moments. I can tell when I know X amount of minutes goes by and people are now bored. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. It could be pleasurable to be bored. You know what I mean? But the scream was also really personal because I had been going to a lot of like hardcore shows when I was younger, and I just thought that was like the ultimate like pinnacle of like freedom, to just like scream, to just like release this like energy from the inside of your body outwards. But what was more fascinating to me was like usually screaming is like seen as like an act of violence or like trauma
Yes.
or like extreme pain. But in these spaces, like I was feeling like welcomed and like accepted. And I think that's where Scream came from, because I think, you know, I did a version of this performance where it wouldn't even be me screaming. I'd ask someone else to scream for me. And it was
Wow.
interesting to see like what would happen, because they felt like the boundary was crossed between the performance. Like I'm not allowed to speak to people. And given that sense of like freedom, most people didn't even know like what to do with that freedom. But I'm trying to figure out like how this like relates with like text, and it's hard to say like how these like I think it's just like the freedom thing. I mean, I think that can be like can happen in almost every medium. It's like you think there are these restrictions, you think there are these boundaries, but all it takes is just one little like slice or like cut, you know what I mean? And then you get a screen or something, you know.
Nah, I thought it was interesting because you know it happened at a very, you know, it did happen at a very particular time in the performance, and it kind of like it also kind of like startled me too, but you know, because it was obviously unexpected, you know, and you know, if it's one, you know, if there's one part that I can take out of that performance and kind of like transcribe it to what I'm doing, it would be that scream, because I think, you know, for me it there's a lot of spontaneous parts throughout what I'm creating, and that you know, me telling you that I'm trying to like transcribe your scream um visually, um it's kind of a tough thing to do because you know, when, you know, I'm dealing with this through a publication, and you know, it's what I'm trying to create is this sense of freedom that's not pinned down but presented through the medium of a publication, but doesn't necessarily have the traditional components of it, if that's a better way to explain it. And I think that particularly to music, I think that there is a freedom in music that um maybe very few musicians exercise. Um, and sometimes I think it comes from a place of necessarily trying to maybe keep the viewers at bay, and to keep them interested as to what they're doing. And you know, for me, I I see the freedom that you have, how and how you create, and I think that it's such a beautiful place to be in, even considering in the age of like the internet where everything is like very performative in its own way. I think that to hold firm to how you want to create in whatever way you want to create is kind of a difficult thing to do, considering the obstacles where that are placed in front of us. And also a lot of people are you know, very heavily into tradition, and you know, they're very spoiled, and they still go off this old way of creating, this old way of exchanging information. And you know, I kind of like wanted to crack down those walls to how traditional something um needs to be. And I see that within your own practice, it's especially, you know, in your paintings. You know, I didn't get a chance to see the paintings in person, but I did get a chance to spend time with them online. And you know, your paintings are for me, they have again, I'm using this word again, this very like tone deaf and somber mood to them, and it's a very high level of intimacy that I've experienced with them, and intimacy is a very huge thing that I'm connected to. And you know, Jasper as on stage versus Jasper the painting, and I'm not trying to rival those two aspects of you, but I sense I sense a sense of peace through your paintings. Um, I just want to know, kind of like, is that kind of like, again, is that by design, or are you uh how are you exchanging this information from through these paintings at versus you as the performer, because those are two separate entities.
Well, I kind of see the performance as the middle point between like the painting practice and the music practice. Because like oftentimes I try and like take these little snapshots of um, just like these insane distances that you have when you're performing. Like I love the word you said, intimacy. It's like you could be like atomically, like you could be atoms close to someone if you wanted to, or you could be like a football stadium away from another person. And it's like I try and think about all these distances, not like through a photograph, but just like emotionally, and then I try and translate that into something visual to like a painting becomes like the easiest method, I think, to translate these things. And vice versa, like a painting, like what I was saying about dying, like paintings, they're very dead. Like they are not time based. Like I mean, they're time based, but they themselves are not. Like they're just still. And I like this idea that in a performance you can just break time in a certain way that you can't do in a painting. So um, I think they kind of create this kind of cycle, and they just keep snowballing.
I'm saying, so because a lot, I've been very I've been thinking about performances lately, with also within my own practice, performance art in theater, and I'm very interested again in this spontaneous way of operating, in this very non-scripted way, in many ways of how I work, and improv performance for me is also creates a certain level of freedom, and
But I also want to say really quick, I also feel like the freedom goes hand in hand with embarrassment.
Yes.
I feel like if you're not embarrassed by something that you're doing, there's like an implied lack of risk or something. So I just want to throw that out there because I feel like that was a big aspect of understanding what performance, because it's so like related to my body. I was like, wow, I need to. That's when I feel most like alive or something. It's when I'm most embarrassed. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there so I didn't lose that thought.
Nah, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, for me, performance art is it's kind of like this I've been, and I'll add on to like this freedom of embarrassment, of whatever case you feel more freedom when you're embarrassed. I'm actually the opposite. I'm looking for this. I'm looking to be more vulnerable in that aspect, because there's lots of different elements to performance art, and for me, I'm always trying to exchange information with myself and those who are engaged. I always want to be in a huge part of my practice is also be in collaboration with other artists, whether it be this like what's taking place right now, conversations, or in whatever manner we're in conversation at. But it's usually um through publication a lot of times, because that's mainly the medium that I deal in. But performance art has been also on my mind very heavy as of lately, and I'm trying to look, because I am a part of my work, but I also sometimes want to be literally a part of my work. And I'm also still very shy in that sense, so I don't think I could be a, a performer in some way. So I'm trying to look for ways and where I can kind of like use my own self as to being a part of the work. And sometimes this exchange between myself being a part of the work and myself being absent from the work is two different ways, because when you're on the other side of the work and you're just creating it, you're kind of like tucked away. But then when you're able to inject yourself into the work, there's a spotlight on you. And you said something about, and I'm just paraphrasing, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a freedom in it, and there's a freedom in embarrassment.
Yeah.
And I'm
I think
and I'm and I'm and I'm and I'm looking to I'm looking to receive that, so that I can I need to get over the hurdle of embarrassment, and I guess I should be looking at the freedom that exists within it. And it's a constant struggle, because I'm more comfortable tucked away, and I'm looking for this way to be spontaneous, but spontaneous enough to share myself within the fabric of the work. And sometimes it could be a very difficult thing. And I guess that's kind of like one of the biggest things that's really admirable about you, is that you're able to kind of like, as they say today, like live your truth. And for some that can be a very difficult thing. And I'm not asking you um uh how are you able to uh be as free as you are. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm kind of like looking to to inherit that way of thought as an artist, so that I can also interject myself into my performances when those performances arise, whenever that may be. So I
Yeah.
kind of
I mean, I think it's
when
it's like one of those questions that's like seems like it should have like a simple response, but I think what's like hitting at me the hardest right now is like privilege. I think goes hand in hand with like freedom in some way. I don't know, like I feel like it's an awkward conversation because freedom is always this thing that we talk about in the context of like civil rights and like people not getting freedoms. But I feel like as an artist, it's slightly different because you're kind of in this class of people that are supported by incredibly wealthy people, and because of that, then you have this like freedom to kind of um do whatever you want. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that is like in my head the most. You know what I mean? Because I think there are methodologies that I feel really committed to. But once you kind of like zoom out and like really zoom out, not just like a small zoom out, it's like kind of feels futile in a certain way, if that makes any sense. But not to be so negative. Or not negative. I just think that that's how I'm feeling right now. I think in the context of my work, though, I'm always, you know, like seeking like why. You know, like you look at something and you're like, why is that like that? And usually it's like one or two books away from finding the next why. You know what I mean? And then you just like keep like, hey, I see that. I see how this is connected to this. Like you start to build your own like library or archive of like things that interconnect. You know what I mean? But
And
it's all,
sometimes like,
you know what I mean? Because also I don't think that my truth is everyone else's truth. You know what I mean? That would be kind of like
oh, by
fascist.
far, no.
You know what I mean? So, but I don't know. Somehow these things are connected. Like the desire to ask the question why, and then this kind of like privilege, they interlock somehow. You know what I mean? So
When you said that, I kind of thought about how a couple of years ago when I would print, I would throw away my I guess you could say my errors, and how I would discard everything, and I would uh, 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 not be too satisfied with it. And then you fast forward it up today, and this practice of revisions are so heavily a part of my practice today. But I always explain this the same way. Every time I explain the elements of revision for me, because revisions for me is not because I'm dissatisfied with what I'm creating. It's more so connected to the idea that my mind is constantly moving very fast, and I'm constantly receiving information, and I I constantly like to add back into the work as it goes. So like, a lot of the publications that I create, a lot of them have things that has been added like later on. Like I'll reprint it, and someone may see it and they may say, oh, I didn't see this page in there, or I didn't see this text in there. And it's just like I keep receiving information, and I just started these new publications that I'm going to be doing. It's called Yusuf Hassan, a research publication. And these publications deal with an unlimited amount of research that's connected to all different types of things, whether it be sound, furniture, architecture, text, um, uh, uh, photography, music, all these different components. And it's kind of like just like research that's done on the whim, whether research when I'm on the train, and then I compile it into these like paper pamphlets, and I print them out. And the work is all in progress. It's continuing to be revised, but not because it has not been because something is not correct, but more so because the information is running rapidly. And when you were saying what you were just saying, I kind of like I kind of like was connected to that way, and it connects to the way in which I work too. And that's a freedom, because like a lot of times when we look at how we revise, we've been constructed to believe that we are revising because something was not done correct. But I found the freedom in being able to revise without feeling like there was an error, but more so because there is more information that I'm receiving in real time at different times, and I'm sharing it out in that particular manner. And I guess like the first time I kind of like got this way of thought was on this book that I did in 2018 called TT. And this book was done to conductions by Butch Morris, and where it started out with I believe 275 pages, and it was an edition of 50. And each time I assembled the book, there were more pages added, and I think it went up to around like 385 pages. I still got like 5 copies left that I haven't assembled. And it's so much of things. I haven't assembled a copy of TT in over a year. So um it's so much of things that I'm pretty sure that I would add into that book. And it would be, the pages would be inserted into the book, as Butch Morris would play his conductions. And I kind of like wanted to use uh that particular performance to kind of like inform how I'm inserting the pages. So like none of the pages are inserted in the order of the previous publication. So like everybody who got a copy would kind of like have to come together to kind of like see what each person got in their books. And I guess that's kind of like almost impossible, because like there are people who bought the book that live in Europe, there are people who bought the book that live in the States, and they don't know one another. I don't know half of the people that purchased the book. And that spontaneous way of working kind of like created this freedom for me to work in this improv way when it comes to like revising. And I just kind of like thought about that when you were just speaking about like this freedom this way. I just wanted to share that.
No, I think we definitely align with that, because I've done 2 editions of the book, and each edition is different. And then on the albums, there are page numbers that connect to the book, and then there's like this constant like connections to like other things and like past versions and new versions. But the thing that I've been now dealing with is like literally no one has time for all that. You know what I mean? Like you're lucky if you get something like 10 minutes of someone's like attention. You know what I mean? But I think now where I'm at with it is like I like this idea of presenting something that is like intentionally like unraveling or something, so that there is curiosity to kind of like go down this rabbit hole and see how things are aligned or misaligned or gone or still there or something, that opportunity can. And so rather than being like, this is finished, this is the complete object, this is the finished work of art, you know what I mean? And in that way,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the closest thing we have to like life in art, are like these revisions, these like redoing things, like, because otherwise then if it stays the same, then it just kind of like I don't know.
I mean, there's also this even I like to also think of like what I'm doing as a study. There's a study in my work, and I'm still studying my own work, and I come back to it, and there's things that I haven't touched in a year, and then I come back to it, or there's things that I didn't touch in 2 years, and I come back to it, and I study my own work, and I built like a little research situation in my that I have of all my publications, and I come back and I study them, and I look at them, and I look at things that kind of like re-inspire me and re-spark thoughts, and come back. And I want to touch on this idea of the work before it's, I guess, shared, right? Because I always talk about how I'm so interested in what took place before the final version of what we have. And I I guess my question to you is, how how do you deal uh with what you created before it's kind of like released, kind of like that vulnerable, you know, version of whatever you're creating before it's out to the masses? Like, how are you engaging with that part of your practice? Do you feel more connected to it when you have it in your possession, or are you more connected to it once it leaves your possession? You know, because we can be, you know, I like to use the, you know, like to always say, like, we could be gatekeepers of our own work as well. And, you know, I had to learn to let things go and like relinquish ownership. And I just want to know, how do you deal with that exchange between holding your work and then and letting it go? Because sometimes we can feel so connected to it that we we don't want to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, I think in painting I'm a bit more at peace with it because I can approach everything pretty serially. Like I know that if there's like a specific um like there's like specific formal or color ideas that I have, I know that I can make like 3 paintings all exploring different aspects of this one idea. You know what I mean? I think music's a bit more complicated for me. Um, I think I've tried to apply that same methodology. Like I've done the same song over and over and over again. Um, and that was pretty rewarding, but I think now it's gotten to a bit of a more unhealthy space where I'm working on basically 2 songs for like 4 years. Just version, and that feels unhealthy. Um, so I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know if there is an answer really. I like what you said though. We are sometimes we can be gatekeepers of our own work. I mean that's I can really
Well, I
relate to
mean, I mean that's fully loaded. Because I mean that's a conversation in its own. Because you know, and you know, we can be gatekeepers of our own work, and you know, to use the word that could be unhealthy because, you know, it's you know, I like to always like approach everything that I do. You know, everything that I do is like for, you know, first and foremost is for myself, and everything else is a bonus from that point on. Um, I really have no real way of determining how anybody engaged with what I'm doing, and that's kind of like not my job, and that's not up to me on how they receive or don't receive what I'm creating. And I'm really not interested in that aspect. But you know, again, you know, it's we become so connected to the work that sometimes we don't want to let it go. And you know, it's like this question that that was posed by this artist, and the question was, um do you believe that the work dies or come alive when it leaves the studio? And um I I always answered this question in 2 parts because I believe um that for myself, the work is more alive when it's in my possession, when I'm still figuring it out. Um, but it takes on a new life once it leaves my hand. And for some artists, they can't deal with what comes after the work leaves their hands because they for some artists they feel like they've kind of like lost control of how it's being engaged with. And for me, I guess what I'm trying to say is that is a freedom, and not everybody have gotten to that place, and some may never get to that place. And I'm gonna pose the question to you. Uh, do for your own work in your own practice, whether it be music, your paintings, do you believe that your work dies or come alive once it leaves your possession?
I think it. I don't know. Maybe it's like some weird zombie dead and alive. You know what I mean? Because old stuff definitely comes back to haunt me, and like has haunted me. And decisions that I've made, things
Mhm.
that I'm really happy about, things that I'm really upset about, but it's all informs everything, both past and present. I think that's what's most exciting about the privilege to make art is that um, I don't really think about it as like a linear thing. You know, you make something and then that modifies things that decisions you made in the past, and maybe will change things in the future. So yeah, I think more zombie like zombie like thing. Zombie. Is there a word for that? Like zombie.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, so look, I put it like this.
Mm.
I like to believe that the things that I did it in that moment, and I was happy with the results then. And I never look at the past for myself. I'm speaking for myself. And then say that, I'm kind of like unhappy because I guess at that particular moment, I, I had the freedom to do whatever it is that I wanted to do, and in that moment, I wanted to do this. I guess like the past kind of like it could inform what we're doing moving forward. It can impact it, and in some ways, and maybe in some ways, it can't impact it. But I guess it's all how we receive information, and you know, um, I guess I would say lastly, you know, uh, how you know has the addition of Carter Speaks, has it?
Yeah. Crater, yeah. Crater
Huh?
speak. Crater speak.
Crater Speak. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Crater. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Crater Speaks um concludes.
How does it conclude? Um, well, working on the last edition right now.
Great.
Um, but I'll just be candid about it. I think the last edition like has basically like most of the pages are just erased, so you're just left with this kind of like empty book. Um, that's how it ends.
I think that's I think this is a nice note to end. And
Yeah.
Keith, for the record, um, can we please I apologize to Jasper.
It's all good.
I just blotched his book. I just can we please can we please make humor out of this? It's it's real hard on the eyes sometimes.
Yeah.
I get so let me ask you this question lastly. Am I the only one that kind of blotched? Or
No.
you or
Well,
no?
no one. I kind of like it's kind of deliberate. Like the first album I put out, like no one says it right, because there's like a misspelling on the title, but it became intentional later. So
Okay.
it's like what is that Marshall McLuhan book? Medium is the massage. People think it's the message, but it's actually the medium is the massage. So, but both
All
are right.
right. True. And it's all love. So, I guess we gotta end it right here. And I just want to say, in all seriousness, man, I really appreciate you. I admire what you do, and I really appreciate you for spending some time with me, and as part of this program, and just talking with me. I'm pretty sure that we'll have more conversations down the road. I'm pretty sure I'll see you again. I know that you're going to be in New York sometime. It'll be nice to see you. And I really appreciate you. I would like to also thank Prince and Matter allowing us to do this and for organizing this. I would like to thank Heath and Hannah, who has been working tirelessly to bring this all together, and I just would like to thank them as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Yusuf, for having me.
Absolutely. Thank everyone, and we'll catch up at some point in time.
For sure.
Peace. All right. Thank you.
Bye.